floor to Mr. Helmer, Mr. Tökes and Mrs. Gomez. Mr. Helmer, the floor is yours.
Madam Chairman, can I thank you as a member of the Korea Interparliamentary Delegation. I'd like to thank the Human Rights Committee for inviting members of the Korea delegation to come here today. And I must apologise, I understood we were starting at 11 o'clock, and I'm sorry that I missed some of the proceedings. I too have had the doubtful privilege of visiting North Korea, not so many times as our other colleague. I spent several days there a couple of years ago, and it was a surreal experience. It was a serious shock. I simply hadn't realised that a country like that could exist. Now, in fact, we have heard that there are 200,000 prisoners in these prisoner camps, which I guess would be something like 1% of the population, which is shocking enough in itself. But I think in a very real sense, the whole country is one very large and very poor prison camp. It is a country that talks about self-sufficiency as the heart of its philosophy, and yet it is not self-sufficient. It is a mendicant state that depends upon the subventions of other countries for energy and for food, and despite that, we know that huge numbers of people have died there. It was very moving to hear Mr. Shin's testimony, and we know that that testimony is true. There can no longer be any reasonable doubt. The question for us as parliamentarians is what can we possibly do about it? Now, Mrs. Song has suggested that MEPs can contribute through dialogue, and I would like to believe that is true, but I have engaged in dialogue with other colleagues and with the North Koreans, both in Pyongyang and also here in Brussels. And I have to say it is a dialogue of the deaf. We end up talking past each other, not talking to each other. We've heard Mrs. Lambert tell us about statements from the North Koreans about North Korean rights. It is clear that they are simply making statements which all of us know to be entirely untrue. And if we just sit there and say this is not true, it becomes impossible to take the dialogue forward. It is also clear that our North Korean interlocutors are extremely concerned and careful about what they say. They're looking over their shoulders at their colleagues. As we've heard, you never talk to them one at a time. They're being watched by their other colleagues. Now, the question arises, what can we possibly do? And the one suggestion I've heard so far that I really think shows the way in which the Parliament might perhaps help and contribute is Mrs. Lambert's suggestion that we should produce a report of the European Parliament on the question of human rights in North Korea. You may say that yet another report reaffirming what we know to be the case already is not going to contribute very much, but to the extent we can do anything, I think it is incumbent upon us as the European Parliament to state the position very, very clearly and to condemn what is going on in North Korea. The problem with North Korea is we don't actually know what they want. They appear to want nothing else than to survive. I'm not quite sure why they engage in dialogue, but they never take dialogue forward. We have heard today on the human rights issue how they will start a conversation and then find some trumped-up excuse to withdraw from the dialogue. We know that's the case on the nuclear issue and on other issues. So they go through the motions of negotiating, but there is never any real progress. So in conclusion, Madam Chairman, I would say I would very much add my voice to Mrs. Lambert's voice and call for the European Parliament to prepare a report. If there is anything we can do to increase the pressure on this North Korean regime, then we should do it.
Thank you for that.